Welcome to the World of Foundational Horror Podcast, episode 108. I'm Mom, aka Christina, and this is the podcast where I take a tour of classic international horror. On the main pod, Mac and I choose a genre or subgenre of horror and pair an international film with an American one. With these minis, I want to fill in the gaps of my own knowledge and find those foundational films that have influenced and inspired modern horror. The only rules for this project are that the movie has to have been made before the year 2000, and it must not have been made in the US. Today, joining me to help discuss Mario Bava's 1971 classic, A Bay of Blood, is filmmaker, podcaster, Canadian, and esteemed WoHo, Stefan MacDonald-Labelle. Welcome, Stefan.
Thank you. Definitely primarily Canadian. Is this the plug time? Should I plug really quickly? All right, cool. Yes, I'm going to plug away. So I have a podcast called Drag Mitch to Hell, which I do with my buddy Mitch, and the premise of the show is incredibly simple. I pick a movie each episode that I believe Mitch will hate and make him watch it, and then we discuss it. And that's literally the whole thing. In between main episodes, we do just little rundowns of what we've been watching, and alternatively, micro episodes where we just talk about a specific film. If it's something that we maybe both saw and we're just kind of curious as to how it was conceived, such as Neil Blomkamp's Demonic, which is an oddity film that I just don't understand how it was made. That's an example of something we would cover. And then I also direct on the side. So I have a feature film that I've shot, and I will show you some stuff, Christina, outside of this some other time. But okay. I won't tell anybody about it because it's still pretty. Maybe I'll come back when it's like doing festivals, and I can plug it properly at that point. Sound good?
Please. Yeah, definitely. Cool. I don't even know how this works. Like, can you get your film to film festivals this year?
No, it'll be, so currently the assembly for it's just about finished, probably like a week away from finishing that process. And then we have one additional day to cover off anything that we need to fill, like, the pacing here feels like a little bit off. Maybe we need to get a few shots to make it flow a little bit better. And then we have a prosthetics day to shoot. And then it'll be like the photography for it will be finished. Then there's some VFX that I have to do. And our composer needs to finish the music. And that's been the most comfortable process. We basically, Mitch, who I do the podcast with, produced this along with me. And one of his like good friends had been a musician for a long time and wanted to get into like scoring films or alternatively video games and stuff like that. And I sent him like a Spotify playlist of like things that I like. Mm-hmm. There's like, the score for like, Daniel Isn't Real, I really love. I think Clark does that, or it could be entirely wrong. I do. If that's wrong, I'm an idiot. That's my only. Okay. That's my defense for me saying things half the time is that I'm stupid. And then like a bunch of other things like Steve Moore, who used to be in the band Zombie. I really like his stuff. So some of those examples, and he basically, I said, don't do this, like do your own thing, but this is the general vibe. And then he just sent me a few tracks before even like seeing anything that we'd shot. And it was just like, I was like, this is perfect. And it's been the most comfortable, easy thing. So all this to say, even if the movie sucks, the score is going to be like very enjoyable. So yeah. So anyways, that has to be finished. And then the post audio has to be finished as well. And that's going to be a process. So it'll go to festivals next year, actually.
Okay. Very cool.
It's my long-winded way of saying nope next year.
I would like to hire your friend to write a theme song for World of Horror.
Oh, he would definitely do it too. He's great.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll talk after the podcast.
Yeah. Sounds good. Done deal.
Okay. Very cool. So we're here today to talk about a classic, 1971. You said
classic in such a way that it was potentially derisive.
I know. I didn't mean it like that.
Oh, okay. I was curious because, like, the idea here is you're watching movies that are considered to be foundational films. It doesn't mean that you yourself feel that they are, correct?
Yes, that, yeah.
Okay, so I have a question. We're turning this into a drag Christina to hell.
Okay.
Were you dragged to hell watching this, or did you?
Oh God, no, I love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Oh no, it was fantastic. But I did want to ask you if we could circle back to Drag Mitch to Hell.
Yeah.
And I think I've heard most of the shows, but I just wonder for you, what was the biggest surprise? Like when you thought you would drag him to hell, but you didn't, and he really liked it.
Yeah. So I think the biggest it could have gone either way, and so a little backstory. Both of us really love the show I Think You Should Leave. Like we're like absolute we send each other memes all the time that are centered around that show. So that show is like a very absurdist sense of humor. So when I made him watch The Greasy Strangler, which is like absurd to the nth degree, I was like, he might either really love this or really hate it. So either reaction would have been surprising to me based on, my understanding of, him really enjoying I Think You Should Leave. He ended up I think he said it's the worst film he's ever seen.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And then there's just me who has a weird sense of humor. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think sense of humor is it's very
subjective.
Idiomatic. Is that the right word? No, it's very idiosyncratic.
Yeah. I think idiomatic is of unknown origin, right? Is that, I think?
I don't know. I think it just has to do with words and usage, but that's not what I meant. I meant idiosyncratic. But yes, sometimes I was just telling my boy, okay, Triangle of Sadness.
Yes.
Did you laugh a lot in the beginning of that film?
I haven't watched it yet, sadly.
Oh, I thought you had.
No, I was going to, and then something always like it's the movie that, like us recording this episode where we like rescheduled it a billion times. It's the movie that like we were like, oh, we'll watch it, and then when the evening time rolls around, we're like, another time. So like eventually I will watch it, and Force Majeure is really great. So I feel like it is set up to be an enjoyable film for me, but I have no idea yet. We'll see.
Okay. Well, that one was a recent experience where I watched it with somebody and I was almost on the floor laughing so hard. And my boyfriend was just looking at me like, I don't get the joke. And so, but I'll be interested to know what you think.
Yeah. I have an odd sense of humor. Like, the most recent movie we did was, Calvaire, and that has like the blackest humor in it. And there's a joke after the main character who was warned not to go out into the village, and then he does that anyways and comes across like a manger, and a bunch of villagers are circled around a pig, and one of them is like sodomizing it. And when he comes back to the person who had warned him not to go to the village, he's like, "Oh, wonderful countryside." But you have to understand the context of the movie it sounds really like blue in terms of comedy, but it's actually like it's really, really good. And I'm not doing a good job of selling it, but it is very, very funny. It's a really good movie. I'd recommend Calvaire if people have the stomach for it, but it's not as trying as you might imagine, but it is part of the French new wave of extremity, so it's a little much, but probably one of the better film of that ilk. But we're not here to talk about that, right?
Okay, well, before we get into the movie WoHos, and I don't think we've cursed yet, but there will be curses, and we will be spoiling elements of the film. And so just be warned that it was awkward, but
I also swear a lot. I apologize in advance.
No, I do too. I don't think it's a problem. This is the short plot summary from IMDb. The murder of a wealthy countess triggers a chain reaction of
good movie
killings in the surrounding Bay Area as several unscrupulous characters try to seize her large estate.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think this movie is an eco-horror film? Because the Countess, it's established pretty early on, or relatively early on, that she doesn't want to sell the property because she doesn't want concrete to be placed onto the titular bay. And yeah, also I like that surrounding Bay Area. It feels like it's a West Coast.
I don't. Yeah, it sounds like San Francisco, but it's not. It's not.
No.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, it was just a dumb thing that I thought of.
But we don't know that until like almost at the end when we have a very strange flashback.
Yeah, there's a lot of flashbacks. There are so many that it becomes kind of endearing. Like, at first I was like, oh, it's like the Johnny Tell-All moment where it's like, here's all of the exposition that you need. But then they keep going, and I was like, oh, I'm kind of into this new. It's like we've walked into a new film. Yes, and I enjoy it.
Spoiler, I love this movie. So I can't wait to talk about it. But I want to talk about who made it.
Yes.
This was directed by Mario Bava. Screenplay was by Bava and Giuseppe Zaccariello and Filippo Ottoni. And,
you're doing a better job than I would, 100%. So
the English version was written by Jean Luoto, and the story was by Dardano Sacchetti and Franco Barberi. And it stars Claudine Olger, Luigi Pistilli, that's a great name.
Yeah,
Claudio Volonté, Laura Betti. We love a Laura Betti.
Yeah.
Leopoldo Trieste and Brigitte Skay. And the cinematography was by Bava because he was a cinematographer before he was a director.
Yeah.
It was edited by Carlo Reali, and the release date was the 8th of September. That's my mom's birthday, 1971, but she was born in 44. And it had a running time of 84 minutes. And
what a merciful runtime. It's so kind.
It's amazing how many murders there are in 84 minutes.
Yes.
So
some more successful than others, in my opinion.
You really get your money's worth, though.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay, so if you had to explain this to somebody who had never heard of this movie, Stefan, how would you describe this movie?
Well, this is an Italian giallo, which giallo just means yellow. It refers to the color of spines of Italian thriller novels. So they're essentially just Italian thrillers. Typically, you have a black leather gloved killer with a switchblade or something, but not here. Not here. You have a multitude of weapons, and the hand is not gloved. But it's typically just kind of a whodunit. And unlike, say, like Suspiria, which people refer to as a giallo, it is not, because it contains supernatural elements and is thus ejected from that category. But this here is just a clear, straight thriller, and it centers. Sorry, the question was, how would I explain it to people? Right?
Yeah, no, you're doing great.
Okay, cool. So before I even explain it, I would say if anybody wants to check this out, you have to be comfortable with dubbing, because Italian movies of this decade are all dubbed. I believe the reason, and I'm almost afraid to say this, but it's because of like the government and wanting to absolutely be certain of what was committed to film. So nothing could be uttered. You don't roll sound essentially with your film, and then they dub it all in post and ensure it complies with the government, I guess. That's what I was led to believe. That's the dubbing reason. Sorry, they actually do roll sound on set, but they just get rid of it.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I think I've heard that before.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to go with. But anyways, the point of bringing that up is it could be off-putting to some people. Yeah. I find it endearing. And anyway, so that's your primer for what the pool that this movie exists in, that it's wading in. And I would describe it as a whodunit, as I already said, regarding a series of killings that are relegated to this bay. And as it unfolds, you realize that it's a multitude of players trying to take control of this area in order to develop on it. So you're constantly guessing what's going to happen next and who is the culprit. I think it's weird because I don't want to, part of me is like, oh, I don't want to spoil it. then the other part of me is like, we've already spoiled it, so you're being an idiot and not explaining enough of the film.
I mean, there are some, I guess, twists in the plot, but basically it's a bunch of people come to this one location and get bumped off by, is it 3 killers? I mean, it's not one.
1, 2, 3, 4, I think. 4,
right? So, which, like you said, is different. And the first killer, I do think, does have a glove.
Also, yes. Sorry, or something I do want to say that I really think is kind of cool, because if you're going into these movies, you're kind of expecting. It's like going to see Scream. You don't expect to find out who the killer is until the end. And I think you could also look at Scream 6 in this film and make the comparison that this movie actually kind of subverts your expectation, because so the Countess owns the land. Countess Frederica Donati owns the land. And she doesn't want to sell it because she wants to maintain the nice pastoral colors, which it's kind of it looks a little gross in my opinion, but you know what? It's fine. It's nature. It's all right. But she doesn't want to sell it. So she is murdered. She's hung, and it's a very like well lit and kind of creepy scene. And then you would expect to not know who the killer is and have the movie progress from there. But instead they reveal who the killer is. And it's her husband, Count Filippo Donati. Very, very similar names, which confuses me as somebody who's bad with names. But
that's funny. I never thought of that.
But Scream 6 has the same thing where they kind of like reveal the killer, and then that person is then dispatched, and resetting the whodunit aspect of the film that I really enjoy. Like this movie does do something, at least, by today's standards. You might watch it and be like, oh, it's a slasher essentially, and it has like a very like slasher by way of an Italian filmmaker setup that might seem kind of like retrograde to a certain extent, because you've seen so much already, and to go back you might feel like like it's cliche or something to that effect. But it does do stuff even for the time that he's trying to do something different with the genre, even if it seems retrograde by today's standards, is I guess what I'm trying to say, but I'm not smart enough to get there.
No, that makes total sense, because we've all become accustomed to Friday the 13th and Scream, and and so this is not that. And I've heard it called a proto-slasher.
I think that's incorrect too, because like, all right, when I was growing up, my teen years, Halloween was always referred to as the genesis of the slasher. Then when I got into my 20s, everybody's like, Black Christmas was first. It's the original slasher. Then when I got into my 30s, everybody was like, Bay of Blood is the original slasher. I'm like, well, he made Blood and Black Lace in 1964, which is before this film, and it's also a masked, gloved killer. Like, I think trying to say what started it is incorrect, and I think it would be more correct to say like this just had a tremendous influence on a lot of filmmakers who became directors working in the slasher genre. I think because there's always going to be like there's always one before the one you're leapfrogging to try to find the earliest film, but it's a zero-sum game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I've heard Peeping Tom and Psycho, and it's just kind of silly, at some point.
Yeah, it just feels like people are trying to like gatekeep like the history of the genre. I'm like, who cares? Like, yeah. But anyways,
before I watched this movie, the only thing I did know about it was that one of the kills in Friday the 13th is pretty much lifted, stolen, paid tribute to from this movie. That's all really that I knew about it.
I think it's Kevin Bacon's death. I think he's the one who gets speared in the bed.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I honestly, like, I grew up with the Friday the 13th movies, but it's like I watch them every once in a while for fun. But I typically watch them now if I've been drinking, and my recall of them is like a fractured mess. Because like to me they're not like it's not like a sober watching movie for me. Go ahead.
Do they run together in your mind, or?
Yeah, like I have a hard time figuring out like which movie has Crispin Glover in it and which one has like Corey Feldman.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's a big old mess for me. Yeah, I don't know, because I don't really enjoy those films, to be completely honest. They're just like, it's like a background movie or something.
I just always think of the scene in Wet Hot American Summer that, where Janine Garofalo is like trying to find the phone or whatever. And I think it is a play on a scene in Friday the 13th, but I'm not that familiar with Friday the 13th. I know that scene in Friday the 13th too seems pretty iconic, and Bava actually was there first.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of funny. I'm just looking at the trivia, and I had done Hatchet for the Honeymoon on the World of Foundational Horror before, and Laura Betti was a big part of that movie, and apparently she was a big part of this one too. And she's a terrible actor. She's just awful. So she must be really fun to work with. Because she's not bringing it.
Not bringing it, no.
But anyway, so anyway, apparently they didn't have woods where they were shooting, so Mario Bava created them by setting up tree branches to pass through the camera shots. And he did a similar thing on Black Sunday, I believe. Yeah. So he's very creative.
His cinematography is great. It's just wonderful. Part of me was like, is his cinematography better than his directorial output? And I was like, that's a bad conversation to have, and I don't want to talk about it.
Well, one thing that also is different, I think, about this movie is it's very pretty. I mean, it takes time to pan across the bay and at sunset, and I don't know, really cool shots.
Like the Countess, when she's like going through her manor in the beginning of the film, is also like very pretty. And when the caravan of hippies descend on the bay, that's also just like, it's also they spend so much time of just like, it's like slice of life that feels like very like Italian styled, where it's just like, we don't need to like, there isn't some aggressive need to just like push forward the plot that you would see in like traditional like North American films. They just like, we'll just see these people and we'll like watch them for a little bit and see like how they arrive at this location. And my partner really is like a huge fan of Call Me by Your Name, and that is like a very much that feels like such a good example of like, I don't want to like generalize about like all Italian films are like this, but there is like a large subsection of them that just love to like luxuriate in a locale with its actors, and it just feels like, I don't know, to a certain extent it makes you feel like you're there with them rather than needing to like push forward plot or aggressively establish character. Not that they're not establishing character, you can do that at the same time, but it just feels like a it's like a, you're being like lulled into the film in a certain way. Like it doesn't feel like you're being pulled. You just, it's more comforting, I guess.
Yeah. And it's just, sometimes it's like a hang, with the people or with the location. I was just thinking of Bird with the Crystal Plumage. And there's another one, and you probably know it, but I can't think of the title, but they just spend so much time in this one house.
Is it Torso?
No, I'm not going to get it, but
no, it's all right.
But I was just thinking, wow, this could never be made today because it's just like so slow.
Yeah.
And people don't generally make movies like that. Sometimes, they do, like Guadagnino.
Man, I loved Rust and Bone. Sorry. Bones and All. Rust and Bone is also a good movie. Come on, but also,
But no, I haven't seen it yet. But I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I really liked it. Yeah, I described it as Terrence Malick with cannibals is what I would say.
Oh, nice. That sounds good.
But like good Terrence Malick, like the Badlands or Days of Heaven. Is that the right name? I confuse that with the Tom Cruise NASCAR movie title all the time.
Days of Thunder.
Days of Thunder. There we go.
Very different.
Very different movies. That was Tony Scott's Terrence Malick film. That was Tony Scott, right? I think
I
that
don't
sounds
know.
right.
We
I
need
think that sounds
Quinn.
right.
She's like the Tom Cruise expert, but
Yeah.
I did not love I hated the Suspiria remake, but I really did love Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah. Call Me by Names is just such a good time.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. To ensure the utmost realism in depicting the 13 different murders, Mario Bava insisted that Carlo Rambaldi be hired to provide the special makeup effects. And I wrote down, well, I didn't write down, somebody compiled all of the 13 deaths, and I thought it might be kind of fun to go through them and talk about which ones succeed and which ones are not so hot.
When you said this, I was like, this is a great idea. There should be like a podcast, and it probably exists, where people just like for horror films or anything with like a larger body count, they rank the deaths of the film. That'd be a good idea.
I think so.
It probably exists already. But
I mean, almost everything exists already.
Yeah.
But so should we go like in order, or do you want to just talk about your favorites? And of course, we know WoHos, this is completely out of context, but really all you need to know is a bunch of people get gotten.
Yes. So do you want me to, I have a pretty good recall of this. Do you want me to run through all of the murders really, really quickly and explain?
Yeah.
Cool. So we have the owner of the land, Countess Federico Donati. She's hung. I'm an idiot with that. And she's murdered by Count Filippo Donati, who's the next one to go. And he's murdered by that's the black gloved killer with the knife, right?
Yes.
So he's stabbed a bunch of times. Pretty gruesome. Then we have our 4 hippies. We have the German, Brunhilde, and she gets hacked with, it's kind of like a scythe.
Yeah, tiny.
It's like a tiny little, it's like a hook.
Like a mini scythe.
if people don't know this movie and you're listening to this podcast, if you go look up the thumbnail for the cover, it's the weapon that's on it. So that's what we're referring to. Then we have poodle-haired Robert.
Yes.
What a coif of hair. He gets hit with the same device in the face, and it vertically decimates him. Then we have Denise, who's the French one, the French hippie, and her and Duke, who's the other Italian male hippie, are having some sexy time and get skewered together in bed, and their writhing bodies kind of like slowly go limp, indicating that their life has been extinguished. Then we have there's a bunch of series of red herrings in here. So we have Paolo Fasati, who's an entomologist, either amateur or professional. I can't tell, but he seems amateurish to me. He gets strangled with a telephone cord as he's going to phone the authorities as the bodies start to pile up. And then his partner Anna Fasati, who is a amateur seance person.
Sure, yeah.
We can go with that.
And maybe professional drinker.
Definitely professional drinker. Filled with intense regret is what I think we can agree on for that character. And she gets rather abruptly decapitated with an axe. So that's our 8th victim. Then we have Laura Ventura. She's the partner of the architect, the person who wanted to develop the area. He has like floor plans and stuff on his desk.
Yes.
She gets strangled to death. This time, this person is strangled by hands versus a telephone cord. Then we have the illegitimate heir to the Bay, who's Simon Donati, who is Frederica's out of wedlock progeny, and he's impaled by a garden hoe. Then we have Frank Ventura, the aforementioned person wanting to develop the area with all the plans and all the stuff, the schematics. He gets stabbed with scissors in the leg and dies, ?
Yeah.
An artery gets hit, I suppose. And then our final 2 murders are Albert and Renata Donati. Renata Donati is the daughter of Count Filippo Donati outside of this current marriage. I believe that's correct. and they both get shot with a shotgun. And I'm not going to say who does the shooting because it factors into my ranking of this kill as to why I enjoy it. So, is that did I do a decent job? I'm not sure.
You did a great job. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
So do you? So with all that said,
I have a full.
You've got them all.
I've got them all listed by my enjoyment. Wait, sorry, that sounds gross. Like I'm like, oh, violence. That's not at all.
I didn't take it that way. Okay. But I mean, they are really fun. Like they're almost to the. I mean, I didn't, but I could see somebody rewinding and watching these, a couple of times. They're pretty neat. Okay, so yes, let's hear your rankings, and I will try to keep an open mind.
Yeah, I literally just put this together, so I could be subject to cajoling to rethink a few of these. My first is Brunhilde because I think it is such an aggressive, like it basically the person like almost like she's like in like a vaudeville act with like the cane being yanked off stage, but it's the blade and it kind of like the hooks around and catches her neck, and then she gets hit again, and it's quite gruesome. And this is kind of like your first introduction to, I think, the violence aside from Federico getting murdered. Or is that Filippo? Filippo. He gets stabbed, but they're all close shots. It's not really as aggressive. This is, you're seeing much more of the violence, and it's quite shocking. So I gave that as my number one because I thought it was good stuff. It was shocking. It shocked me. My second place, and for people who die together, I've just put them together. So Albert and Renata are my second, and they get shotgunned. And I didn't say who did it because they've come to murder everybody as a third party instigator into this scene to try to take over the bay, and they've left their children in a like RV behind. Maybe that's like an Italian whatever. We'll leave them. We're gonna go have fun. Maybe that's like. This is something culturally that I don't understand, but it is very weird.
It is
very weird. Anyways, so they're the ultimo hombre, the last man standing, or last people standing in this case. You think you've reached the end of the movie, then bang. So there's a mom and dad, bang. And it's revealed that the children have found their rifle and have shot the last two people. And it is so great. If you needed an advert for gun violence, well, just Bay of Blood. Bay of Blood is your ticket. That will hopefully usher in reform that is desperately needed across the globe. It is just such good stuff. I'm a huge fan.
I love it too.
Yeah. Big fan. It was so shocking and also so funny. They frolic off at the end of the movie, and it was like such a great way to end it. And so darkly comedic. I'd say the Countess is next because I thought it was such a striking image, like the wide shot of her hanging, having been thrown out of her wheelchair. It's such a shocking scene. Next, I have Robert, our poodle-haired guy, because it is also so aggressive, like Brunhilde. It's just very aggressive. I have Anna Fasadi next, the person who gets abruptly decapitated. Because I was like, woo! It doesn't look great, but it is just so shocking and fun. What do I have next? I have Simon because much like. I feel like there's a good comparison between the way that he's died in the film and his mother. Like there's a wide shot and he's kind of like hanging, having been like pinned to the wall, and it looks somewhat similar stylistically to the way that his mother has died. That I find like a visually engaging shot, and it just looks kind of cool. So that's why Simon is here for me. And again, I just liked the dichotomy between him and his mother and the way that their deaths are filmed. Denise and Duke next are impaled couple. The Count is after that with the multitude of stabbings. Frank Ventura, our leg stabbing. That I don't hate it because it's such an odd place to get stabbed and like to have like a mortal wound that I kind of also enjoyed it, but still not great for me. And then for me, the two worst are Laura Ventura getting strangled, and then Paolo Fasati. That is his is by far the weakest. He just gets strangled by a telephone cord. It's just like they're like ran out of money and they're like, oh, we gotta get one more death in this movie. All right, I got a rotary phone. Let's go to town. Like it just it didn't feel like it had the same kind of like gravity.
I'm with you.
Yeah,
that's great. I mean, I don't know if I would argue with. I might put Federica up a little higher, just because I'd never seen this movie before, and to see an old woman hanged, and like you said, she's thrust out of her wheelchair and she's gasping and she's choking, and it's quite disturbing. And then we see her hanging there from different angles, and after her husband is killed, he is dragged away, and the camera is on her still, and she's just, just hanging there. So I thought that was pretty horrible. And
it's also just like a really nice sequence. Like it's well put together.
I also think Brynhilde is great. I mean, she's naked. She's been like skinny dipping, and she's running, and she's put some clothes on, but she's falling all out of them. And it's just great. And then, like you said, somebody sort of from behind catches her neck. Yeah, and it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, that's a really good sequence. So if anybody hasn't seen this movie, she essentially the dead body of the Count has been thrown into the bay, and she discovers it. The bloated hand kind of just like brushes against her, and she reasonably freaks out and gets into her clothes and runs off, and then is dispatched. It's just a really good sequence.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's see.
It's a video nasty. I see in your notes.
Yeah, I guess it was. I do like the shotgun at the end. That's really fantastic. And the dub is, wow, they do a really good job of playing dead, don't they? And then they run away to the beach, and there's this like really strange music underneath them. And
it's so good.
Yeah, they're the only ones left at the bay. These two little kids. So yeah, I think we're simpatico as far as those kills go, and I agree.
Nice.
Like the telephone cord is not great.
Not great.
A little more trivia. One promotional gimmick was that every ticket holder was required to pass through the final warning station, where a theater worker warned you face to face that this may be the last shock film you will ever want to see. I find that hard to believe.
Imagine you're some poor minimum wage worker at a theater, and Mario Bava comes in and he's like, hey, we're doing something here. You're going to have to ask everybody this stupid question. And you're like, oh, fuck, I hate my life.
Yeah.
You just, existential dread sets in. And you're like, this director is trying to really make something about this.
So it says it's one of 39 films that were successfully prosecuted under the Obscene Publications Act in the UK, a list commonly known as the Video Nasties. Stefan, have you seen all 39 films?
I don't think so, but I've seen a lot of them. Actually, I have a pretty bad memory for titles, so I wouldn't even be able to tell you. Like, there's still obvious ones, like Cannibal Holocaust would be on that list, and like a slew of others. Also, I'm a huge fan of Censor, which is a modern movie that tackles the video nasties panic of the 80s in the UK. So if anybody's listening and wants to see a really cool modern movie, because modern stuff needs love too, watch it. It's a wonderful period piece. Yeah.
Apparently, Christopher Lee was reportedly so disgusted watching this movie at the level of violence that he left the theater in protest. And I just got to say, I love Christopher Lee, but I don't like it that he did that.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know what the impact of this would have been at the time, I guess.
Yeah.
Not to say like, oh, everybody's desensitized nowadays. I also don't think that is fair. I just think that like there are a lot of movies that even like shocked me. Like I remember the first time I saw Green Room, and that has like short bursts of violence, and it kind of comes out of nowhere. Like there's a scene where can't remember which character it is, but they're like, is this person dead or not? And they slit his stomach to like, he's dead. Like, here, I'll show you. And it is just so like graphic and shocking. So definitely not desensitized, but I don't know how this would have impacted me if I saw it at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. And Quinn and I just covered A Clockwork Orange on the Quinnisode, and apparently Gene Kelly was so offended by the use of Singing in the Rain that he just, silently did a 180 when he saw Malcolm McDowell. And I'm like, get over yourself.
Yeah, that's silly. Yeah. He's in a ton of kind of Malcolm McDowell, I mean, is kind of in a ton of what I would consider like risque films for the time. Because there's A Clockwork Orange. There's also If, with the ellipses that follow it, that deals with like, it ends with like a school shooting. There's a lot of like really cool stuff that he had been a part of. Also, the intro to our podcast uses the Clockwork Orange. We're going to watch some movies.
And I wasn't that familiar with the film. Well, I'm not super familiar with it still. Yeah. And I thought that was a man's voice. I'm just going to show you some films.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's a woman's voice.
Yep.
This reportedly has more alternative titles than any other movie, and I wanted to know what you thought of them. So working titles were The Stench of Flesh. Thus do we live to be evil, and that will teach them to be bad.
I think that the only one that I know of is it was called Bloodbath too, right?
I think that here. Yeah, so those were working titles, and then I guess in Italian it was the Ecologia del Delitto.
It is an eco-horror film. We discussed it.
There we go. Of Crime. And then Reazione a Catena, which is chain reaction.
Yeah, not to be confused with the Keanu Reeves 90s thriller, or early aughts. I think it's 90s. I can't remember.
I'm not familiar.
It's great.
Carnage.
Actually, no, it's not.
There have been a ton of movies called... Now, Carnage works. I mean, This is a film of carnage.
Yes.
But that's also an overused title, I think.
Yeah.
Of course, Twitch of the Death Nerve, which I believe was Bava's favorite, and I think that's how it was released in the U.S.
I like that name, but it doesn't fit the film. Like, I would like that for something else, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. But... Yeah, it doesn't exactly fit. And then, as you said, Bloodbath, which I think is also apt.
Yeah.
So, which is your favorite, or which do you think captures it the best?
I think Bloodbath is my favorite of the titles, the alternate titles. Twitch of the Death Nerve is an amazing title. It just doesn't fit the film. So, yeah. What about you?
I do like Twitch of the Death Nerve, even though it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, Giallos are famous for having like really complicated, like there's the Sergio Martino movie, Your Vice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key, which is my favorite.
Don't Torture a Duckling.
Don't Torture a Duckling, the Lucio Fulci movie. There's, then there's mercifully short ones like Torso and stuff like that. But yeah, good. House with the Laughing Windows is another one of mine that are a favorite from this. The House with Laughing Windows. I don't know if I said that correctly. That's another good Giallo from the 70s that I like a lot.
I don't know that one. Is it good?
It's hard to find. Yeah, it's slow. It's definitely on the slower side, but I really enjoy it.
Okay, so as on the main show, I collected some letterboxed reviews. I usually have Quinn read the higher starred reviews. Would you be willing to read those?
Certainly. For format, do you say who did it as well as the star rating, or do you just do the copy, what they said? No,
like Diana NK gave it 4 stars. Like that.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to repeat a lot here. So we have Diana NK here with a 4-star review published on August 16th, 2022. The genesis of the slasher subgenre. Again, we discussed this. It's not Don't. Gnarly kills, little mystery, sicko ending. Loved it. I like that review, minus the genesis of the slasher subgenre, as we discussed. Full review and discussion on the UK's infamous Video Nasties list on Giallo of the Month Club. So I guess that's a podcast or blog plug for Diana and Kay.
I follow her on Instagram, and I've heard a couple of her shows. Yeah.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's pretty good. She gets smart people to talk about Giallo. So.
Oh, nice. Cool. Yeah. We have Mycelial Mind. Somebody likes mushrooms or fungi, I guess. This review may contain spoilers, and they're correct. This is a 5-star review. You're in for a ride when the only survivors are kids, and a hand over the mouth emoji. I like that. That's a good one. I'm a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
Now we have Evelyn with another 5-star review published on March 2nd, 2023. So relatively recent. If you needed convincing that image construction is the most effective way to convey narrative in a film, then look no further. Every reveal and major plot beat forward is done through the dichotomy of what the camera allows or doesn't allow us to see in relation to the I bungled that entirely. Or doesn't allow us to see in relation to the geography it's placed in. There's no wonder this is one of the most influential films ever. It's practically a screed on the entire medium itself. Unbelievably haunting and haunted violence in this. Some of the gnarliest acts of death and decay I've seen. We have LGenIF. I have no idea. I just try my best here. 5-star review. A gorgeous piano piece followed by a heartless killing. Starting off great. Some great kills, but the grossest are the scenes with the octopus. I think because that's a real octopus fair. There's a couple, and they are so unexpectedly nasty. I really like the twists and turns of this. There are a lot. I agree. We didn't mention the octopus stuff, but there's Simon, the illegitimate son, munches on a octopus that is live in almost old boy-ian fashion.
Yeah.
Jordan, 84, 5-star review. Fun movie about the boundless, bloodthirsty greed of real estate agents and developers. 100% agreed. I want to say get a real job, but I don't want to be mean to anybody who's a real estate agent.
Like my brother, but
oh no!
No, it's fine. He'll never listen to the podcast.
Oh man, I'm just getting so deflated with property. Oh man. Anyways, if you're a real estate agent, I don't think you could be a terrible person, I guess. I don't know you, but I don't think that necessarily makes you a bad person. We're all just trying to profit in this disgusting capitalist hellscape, right?
Absolutely.
Speaking of capitalist hellscape, our next review is from Mobile Trash Unit. It's a 5-star review. I've seen this 5+ times at this point and couldn't tell you a damn thing about any of these characters, but it's fantastic every time one of them dies. Oh man, Mobile Trash Unit. Geraldo Mercado, 5-star review. A dreamlike Italian proto-slasher where death is always around the corner. Not mad about somebody saying proto-slasher, because I do think that is correct. There are evil developers and vehicles full of teens. It's like if Scooby-Doo was horny and everyone died. Very correct. Well over half the cast turned out to be killers. For some, slasher on slasher action. For how influential this movie has been, has yet to be duplicated. I agree. Now we're getting into the derisive bad reviews. So I'm going to turn it over to you because I'm terrible at reading, clearly. I shouldn't be allowed.
You did great. Vasquez gave this a 0.5-star. Man, that sucked. I'm glad A Bay of Blood exists because it gave us slashers and clearly influenced the Friday the 13th series. But this thing was the worst kind of schlock. The acting, the story, Bava's overrated camera work. It was all trash. 0.5-star for the score.
Thus proving the only cool Vasquez is contained in the movie Aliens. Unfortunately, this person is not. Not
cool, Vasquez.
Not cool.
R. Thornhill gave it a 0.5-star. Oh, watched it on May 3rd, 2023. This review may contain spoilers. I truly cannot rate this one fairly because I was in shock after the impalement during coitus scene and remember very little after that. Definitely not a movie I should have seen as a 13-year-old.
So I have a question. Based on this review, is this a 13-year-old on Letterboxd reviewing it, or is this person reviewing a film that they saw when they were 13 decades ago and just reviewing it without having seen it again?
That's what I thought at first, but now I'm thinking it might be a 13-year-old.
I like the world where there's a 13-year-old on Letterboxd who's just watched A Bay of Blood and needs to review it. And but they're also like condemning their parents at the same time, where they're like, Mom and Dad, they don't have it together anymore. They've let me watch a 13-year-old babe in the woods watch Bay of Blood, and it's permanently corrupted me. And now I need to log it on Letterboxd immediately. Because that is clearly the platform that appeals most to 13-year-old boys.
Okay, if this
or girls, I have no idea.
Girls, yes.
Yeah, it's R Thornhill. We have no idea what the R is.
Now, if this is an actual 13-year-old, that means let me see if I can do the math. That means that they were born in
you're gonna depress me.
2010?
That's so gross.
I don't like it.
I don't like it at all.
Ian D gave it 1 star. It takes a true artist to take a movie where a guy gets hacked in the face by a machete and make it boring as fuck. Oh my gosh, how could you find this boring? There's like a minute there's a kill every like 6 minutes or something.
What you could say, what you could try to say as a lull is when like the hippies are introduced into the movie, and even that is it's pretty abrupt, and then the killing just gets going again.
But it's kind of cool. There's like a little intrigue, like who's going to sleep with who. They're dressed really cool. Their buggy is amazing.
Poodle hair.
Come on.
Lots of poodle hair.
They break into somebody's house. And then there's a really problematic, thing with the spear. So I'm really glad that, these kids get killed with the spear.
It's true. It's true. That. I like that not to jump ahead, but I love that the next person has a trademark next to their name.
Do you think we should trademark our name stuff?
I think so.
Adina trademark. Gave it 1 star. She also watched it this year on the 23rd of Feb. So goddamn boring. I don't even know what's happening. Lamau, the ending.
Man, this movie is not really hard to follow, I don't think.
Maybe the first time, just because there
are a lot of characters.
Yeah.
I do like that this movie doesn't like kind of like it slowly introduces like the elements of like who a character might be. So as soon as you meet a character, you don't know what their role in the film is going to be. Like it does feel like it's like the screen written film to a certain extent that I appreciate.
I had a really hard time knowing who the blonde lady was for a really long time.
The Laura Ventura?
Yes. I'm like, is she married to that dude, or I don't know? I
still don't think that they're married, but she has the same last name in the credits. I thought she was like a mistress, or because she's always like, "Oh, come stay," and she like disrobes, and it feels like she's trying to like entice this person to like be more than what they currently are, and if they're married, they can't be more than married. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I have no idea.
I don't know,
but yeah. Who knows?
We've talked about a lot of our favorite elements of this film.
We talked about like the pace. I'd also like to say that there's like good color contrast in like the shots. Like there's a scene early on with the person we just talked about, Laura Ventura and Frank Ventura, where there's like a Jim Beam bottle that's green, or a J&B bottle with like some nice red design, like home design behind them that just looks very, very nice. I know I'm just describing Christmas colors, but in this movie it looks good. Huge fan. So, and this just ties back to me thinking he's just like a very good cinematographer.
He does kind of some maybe goofy things.
The zooms.
There are a lot of zooms.
I love zooms, like 70 style zooms, but here he does like he goes forward, goes back, goes forward, goes back.
There's one character comes upon like all the bodies to that point kind of stacked together in one bedroom, and it goes in and out and in and out and in and out on her face. So yeah, that's a little much.
Yeah, still enjoyed it though, you know.
I mean, I really like this movie. I mean, after I saw it like the second time, I told Mac and Quinn they have to watch it with me for Squad, and I'm like, I think this is my favorite movie of all time.
It's quite a good movie. I'm a huge fan.
I mean, it's really fun. It's not my favorite movie of all time. Of course, that's Paddington 2.
I heard that's a great movie.
You haven't?
I haven't seen it, no.
It's like there's this amazing piece of art out there in the world, and people just haven't seen it.
I think it's because, like, so I, like, my partner and I don't want to have kids. It's, like, not a thing for me. But we do have now nieces and nephews. And I think that once they're, like, not to say it would be inappropriate for them to watch, but when they're old enough to like understand the movie a bit more, I think then it'll be a fun thing to introduce, and I'll watch it then. But I have like a weird aversion to like more like childhood geared stuff. Like I don't know why that is. It's just like a personal preference. It isn't like based in like me thinking it's bad. It's just like it's not something I gravitate towards. But I have heard it's wonderful.
I grew up with a lot of schlock, and I'm imagining that you did too.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, you know, it's hard to commit to something when you don't know what you're going to be in for. But I have to say that it's a masterpiece.
Yeah. I will definitely check it out, and I will report back.
Great. Stefan, would you recommend this film?
A huge enthusiastic yes. Check it out.
I love it.
Yeah.
Would you watch it again?
Yeah, I mean, I watched it twice for this podcast because we rescheduled, and I was like, I need to watch this again, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't think I needed to, like, I know what the plot is because I've seen it enough, but I think I just, like, wanted to watch it again, which just, you know, says how good it is and why I would recommend it to other people. Check it out. It's fun.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah. Also, I just love the, like, whodunit slashers from the 70s. Like, there's a really good American one called Silent Scream that I really enjoy, too, that a lot of people haven't seen, which I'd only recommend if those type of movies from the 70s sound appealing to you. Check it out.
I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about
it's my pleasure.
Stuff, and it was really fun.
Anytime. And I'll be back to, well, I guess whenever you want to talk about a horror movie. I have a slew behind me that I think are foundational. Some are Canadian, so we could do a Canadian one again.
I think that would be fantastic.
Done deal. I'll have to think of something that's like A+ that you haven't seen before, and then that you'll watch that, and hopefully you'll feel equally compelled by. So let me get the gears turning, and I'll put something together.
Okay, that sounds great.
Cool.
WoHos, thanks for tuning into this mini, which was a maxi. I am really having fun with this series, and I hope you are too. Please get in touch and let me know how you feel about this series, and if you have any suggestions for these foundational shows or the main show, or if you would like to have a discussion about a film that means the world of horror to you. Thanks for joining me, Stefan. Once again, is there anything that you'd like to promote?
I have my podcast, Drag Mitch to Hell. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. I have a YouTube channel, which is all of my now incredibly old short films, terminal burrower films. You know, I wanted some kind of Canadian branding, and basically what happens when you die out in, you know, a cold environment and you're underdressed for it, you curl up, and it's terminal burrowing. I remember when I lived in the US for a few years, everyone was like, oh, can you live out in Canada? It's like frigid. It's not. In some cases, it's quite warm. That's why we have so many wildfires right now.
Yeah,
it's pretty brutal. Anyways, so I wanted some kind of like something that felt emblematic of you know, growing up and being from Canada that isn't somehow feels like it's pro a country. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it's not about the country, but more about where I've grown up and how it's impacted me. So that's the story behind the name. And we'll have a movie out soon. So soonish.
That's great. I always wondered what was behind the name. So thanks for filling that in. That's great.
That's why my bumpers are always like a curled up skeleton in the snow.
Remember, we love you, and don't go into the basement.